12 grocery items leaving grocery chains in 2026. Final May shipments. Grocery chains do not send warnings. No announcement. 1 week it is on the shelf. The next, that slot belongs to something else, and the product you have bought for years is simply gone. That's exactly what is happening right now. Not pulled because they failed. Pulled because the shelf space economics no longer justify them. 12 items, all still available today. None of them guaranteed to be there in June. Let's count them down. Number 12. Canned lard, manteca. Most people walk past this one without a second glance. That's been true for decades, which is exactly the problem. Canned lard, sold as manteca in most Hispanic grocery sections, has been quietly disappearing from mainstream chain shelves for years as health trends pushed buyers toward vegetable oils. What remained was kept around for one reason: a specific loyal customer base that cooks in a way that cannot be replicated without it. That base hasn't gone anywhere, but the chains have run the numbers. Here's what's worth knowing before it disappears. Lard produces a texture in flour tortillas, tamales, and pie crusts that no plant-based fat fully replicates. The fat structure is different. The mouthfeel is different. Professional bakers and traditional home cooks have known this for generations. That's why lard never actually disappeared from serious kitchens. It just got harder to find. Stored in a cool, dark location, canned lard remains stable for up to 2 years without refrigeration. Once the chain supply dries up, specialty importers and restaurant supply stores become your only realistic options, and the price difference is significant. If you cook with it, buy ahead. This one won't quietly come back. Number 11. Powdered buttermilk. Here's one that surprises people every time. Not because they've never heard of it, but because they assumed it was already gone. Powdered buttermilk has been surviving on grocery shelves by a narrow margin for years. It sits in the baking aisle, overlooked by most shoppers who either use liquid buttermilk occasionally or substitute with vinegar and milk and don't think twice about it. But for the people who actually use it, serious bakers, pancake and biscuit households, anyone who bakes in volume, there's no functional substitute that performs identically. The case for powdered buttermilk is straightforward. Liquid buttermilk comes in quart containers. Most recipes call for a cup. The rest sits in the refrigerator for a week and gets thrown out. Powdered buttermilk solves that problem completely. Use exactly what you need. Seal the container, put it back. No waste. It is shelf stable for up to 2 years. The value proposition was never the issue. The issue is that the buyer base is not large enough to justify the shelf footprint at chains optimizing for turnover. When this clears out, specialty baking suppliers and online retailers become the only consistent source. The price does not drop when that happens. Number 10. Canned squid in ink. This one was always a long shot at mainstream chains, and it knows it. Canned squid in its own ink is not a product looking for a mass market. It is a product serving a specific culinary tradition, Spanish and Italian coastal cooking primarily, where it is not exotic at all. It is an ingredient. Black rice, pasta al nero, slow-cooked stews that cannot be made the same way with anything else. The ink is not a novelty. It is the flavor. But here is what most people miss entirely. Canned squid in ink is one of the most shelf-stable, nutritionally dense seafood options available. High in protein, rich in omega-3 fatty acids, 0 refrigeration required. A single can covers a complete protein source and a concentrated flavor base simultaneously. The ink itself, squid melanin, has documented antioxidant properties. That is not packaging language. That is food chemistry. Chains stocked it because specialty food buyers asked for it. Chains are pulling it because specialty food buyers were not enough of them. When this exits mainstream retail, it moves permanently into import stores and online specialty suppliers at prices that reflect the change in distribution. Number 9. Masa harina. Pay attention to this one. It matters more than most people on this list will realize. Masa harina is not a specialty item. It is a staple. In millions of households across the United States and Latin America, it is the foundational ingredient for tamales, tortillas, pupusas, atole, and dozens of other dishes that do not exist without it. There is no substitute. You cannot approximate masa harina with cornmeal, cornstarch, or any other corn derivative. The nixtamalization process, the alkali treatment that transforms field corn into masa, produces a different food entirely. So why is it leaving mainstream grocery chains? Because shelf space goes to velocity, and in zip codes where the demographics do not support consistent masa harina turnover, chains are reallocating that space to products that move faster. Regional consolidation means fewer stock-keeping units per store, and low-velocity specialty items are the first to go, even when the product itself is irreplaceable to the people who need it. Here is the practical consequence. When masa harina exits a chain, the communities who depend on it most face longer travel distances to find it, higher prices when they do, and a quiet, grinding inconvenience that does not make any headlines. Stock it now. Sealed properly, masa harina stores well for up to 1 year. If you cook with it regularly, this is the moment to build a supply. Number 8. Canned herring in wine sauce. This is the item most likely to catch you off guard once it's gone. Canned herring in wine sauce occupies a very specific shelf position, close enough to mainstream canned fish to appear approachable, and specialized enough in flavor profile that the average shopper walks past it. That positioning has kept it on grocery shelves longer than it probably should have survived, commercially speaking. Per calorie, canned herring is one of the most nutritionally complete foods in any grocery store. It is loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, vitamin B12, selenium, and complete protein. The wine sauce formulation brings a flavor complexity that canned tuna and chicken can't match. It is genuinely versatile across crackers, salads, grain bowls, and open-faced preparations that need something with depth. Scandinavian and Eastern European cooking traditions have understood this for centuries. The rest of the world is only recently catching up, partly driven by the broader rediscovery of fermented and cured fish in culinary media. The problem, from a chain's perspective, is that the buyer base is loyal but small. When this exits the main grocery aisle, it moves to import and specialty stores where it survives, but at a price point that reflects its new distribution reality. We're halfway through. The next 6 items are the ones that will genuinely surprise people who think they already know their pantry options. Powdered whole eggs have been a quiet fixture in baking aisles and outdoor sections for decades. Functional, unsexy, consistently underestimated. But the conversation around them has shifted, and the timing of their exit from mainstream chains is particularly inconvenient. Here's what most people do not know. Powdered whole eggs are not a compromised product. Properly produced, they contain the full nutritional profile of fresh eggs, protein, fat, vitamins, all of it in a shelf-stable format that lasts up to 7 years when sealed correctly. No refrigeration, no expiration anxiety, no waste when you only need 2 eggs for a recipe. The baking performance is real. Cakes, quiches, egg-based sauces, and scrambled preparations in camping or emergency contexts. Powdered whole eggs deliver functionally across all of them. The texture gap that exists in some applications is measurable but manageable. Professional food service operations have used them for years. Chains are pulling them because fresh eggs move faster and occupy the same mental category for most shoppers. When powdered eggs exit mainstream retail, they will survive in outdoor supply stores, bulk food retailers, and online, and they will be sold at price points higher than what people pay at the grocery store right now. This one surprises people, not because they weren't expecting beets to disappear, but because most of them did not realize they would miss them. Canned beets are one of those products that occupies exactly the wrong shelf position. Too ordinary to seem special, too specific to appeal to everyone. They have been quietly declining in mainstream chain allocation for years, as fresh vegetable sections expanded and the perception shifted toward buy fresh, not canned. That shift missed something important. Fresh beets require roasting time, significant prep work, and they produce deeply staining juice that most home cooks would rather avoid on a weeknight. Canned beets require a can opener. The nutritional profile, folate, manganese, potassium, and dietary nitrates that support cardiovascular function, is preserved through the canning process in meaningful quantities. The liquid in the can deserves its own mention. Beet liquid is increasingly recognized in culinary use as a natural food dye, a braising addition, and a component in cocktails and dressings. It is not a waste byproduct. It is a second ingredient you paid for without knowing it. When canned beets exit mainstream chains, they will survive at natural food stores and online. The price gap versus chain retail is typically 40 to 60%. Number 5. Textured vegetable protein, TVP. Here's the item that the people who know it will be most upset about losing. Textured vegetable protein has a reputation problem that has nothing to do with its actual performance. It sounds industrial. It looks strange when dry. It does not fit cleanly into any current food trend the way oat milk or jackfruit does. And yet, for anyone who has actually cooked with it, it is one of the most versatile, economical, and shelf-stable protein sources available anywhere. The basics. TVP is defatted soy flour that has been processed into a fibrous, meat-like texture. Dry, it stores for years without refrigeration. Rehydrated, it absorbs the flavor of whatever it is cooked in almost completely. It works in chili, tacos, bolognese-style sauces, and stuffed peppers. The texture in a finished dish is genuinely difficult to distinguish from ground meat. The nutritional case is equally strong. Per gram of protein, TVP is one of the most cost-efficient sources available. It is high in fiber, low in fat, and contains no cholesterol. Chains are pulling it because it does not move fast enough in mainstream aisles, and the product does not photograph well for retail marketing. When it leaves mainstream shelves, it will survive in health food stores and bulk retailers, but the mainstream availability window is closing. 4 items left. This one is the most quietly indispensable item on the list for people who use it. Whole water chestnuts occupy a specific culinary function that nothing else replicates. The crunch. Not a softened crunch. Not a crunch that disappears with heat. A crisp, clean texture that survives stir-frying, braising, and being folded into fillings for dumplings, spring rolls, and stuffed preparations, and still provides that characteristic snap in the finished dish. That textural property comes from the cell structure of the water chestnut itself, which maintains its integrity under heat in a way that bamboo shoots, jicama, and other proposed substitutes simply do not. For any household that cooks Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, or broadly Pan-Asian food regularly, whole canned water chestnuts are an ingredient, not an option. When chains phase them out, the cooking changes. Not because the flavor disappears. Water chestnuts are relatively mild. It is the textural dimension of the dish that is gone. Specialty Asian grocery stores will continue to carry them, but that is a different trip, a different price point, and an inconvenience that adds up over time. Here's the one that will hit hardest for the people who weren't paying attention. Canned grape leaves, the brined, pre-softened kind, ready for stuffing, are not a product you can improvise around. Stuffed grape leaves, dolmedas, warak dawali, these dishes require a specific wrapper. The brine-preserved texture, the flexibility, and the mild tannic flavor that complements the rice or meat filling are what matter. You either have grape leaves or you do not have the dish. Fresh grape leaves exist, but they require blanching and preparation time that the canned version eliminates entirely. Dried grape leaves exist, but the rehydration process produces an inconsistent result that experienced cooks notice immediately. The canned version is the practical, reliable option, and it is the one being pulled from mainstream chain shelves. Middle Eastern, Greek, Turkish, and Armenian cooking traditions all depend on this product. When it exits chains, it follows the same path every other specialty ingredient follows, into ethnic grocery stores and online retailers, at prices that reflect the contraction of distribution. Stock now. Canned grape leaves keep for 2 to 4 years under normal pantry conditions. If your cooking depends on them, this is not a product where the window should be allowed to close quietly. Number 2. Instant non-fat dry milk. This one belongs on more people's radar than it currently is. Instant non-fat dry milk has been a pantry staple, a baking ingredient, and a food storage essential for generations. It is functional, nutritionally solid, and shelf-stable in a way that liquid milk never will. Stored correctly in a sealed container, it remains viable for up to 25 years. That is not packaging language. That is the documented behavior of a low-moisture, low-fat dairy product in controlled storage. The nutritional case is real: calcium, protein, B vitamins, vitamin D. Add water and you have a functional milk for coffee, baking, cooking, or direct consumption. The flavor gap versus fresh milk is real and worth acknowledging honestly, but in cooking applications, it is largely irrelevant. Chains are pulling it because fresh dairy moves faster, takes up the same mental category for most shoppers, and the shelf footprint for dry milk does not justify its velocity numbers in most mainstream locations. Here's what that means practically. When instant dry milk exits the grocery aisles, it moves to warehouse clubs, food storage retailers, and online suppliers. The price does not drop. The inconvenience of sourcing it does increase. This is one of the highest utility items on this entire list. Treat its disappearance from chains accordingly. Number 1. Canned hominy. If you have been waiting to find out what sits at the top of this list, here it is. If your reaction was the word hominy, that reaction is exactly the reason it is number 1. Canned hominy is alkali-treated whole corn, the same nixtamalization process that produces masa harina, but left as whole kernels rather than ground into flour. The result is a large, tender, subtly earthy corn product with a chew and a flavor that fresh or canned regular corn does not come close to replicating. Pozole, menudo, hominy, and ham. Slow-cooked stews where the hominy absorbs hours of broth and becomes something dense, satisfying, and deeply filling in a way that regular corn, beans, or potatoes do not quite achieve. These are not dishes that accept substitutes. A dish either has hominy or it is a different dish. Here is what makes this the number 1 item on the list. It sits at the intersection of every trend, quietly erasing specialty pantry staples from mainstream chains. Ethnic cooking ingredient, low national velocity, significant shelf footprint per unit, limited buyer base in non-regional markets. And yet the people who cook with it, heavily represented across the American Southwest, Texas, and throughout Latin American diaspora communities, have no real alternative when it exits mainstream grocery distribution. Specialty stores and online retailers will carry it. The distribution math will change. The price will reflect that change. Canned hominy, still on shelves right now, genuinely irreplaceable to the people who know what it is. And quietly, without any announcement, it is making its way off the grocery chains for good. Buy it now, buy extra, and remember the most consistent truth about any product leaving mainstream retail: by the time most people notice it is gone, the window to stock up has already closed. And there you have it. If this opened your eyes, hit subscribe. More grocery items leaving grocery chains in 2026 coming soon.